Hey everyone, you're watching KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Macklin, and today is Friday, which means it is Football Friday here at KTAL News Now, where I will be previewing some of the matchups this week for Week 9 of college football. And if you've been keeping up all season, it has been a very, very fun ride. Lots of surprises here in the top 25 rankings that are ranked this week, and plenty more exciting matchups are in store for Saturday. And one of those is where number 3 Texas A&M heads to town for a matchup with the LSU Tigers. If you're an LSU fan like myself, that was my alma mater. It's going to be a very, very tough test and could be one of the last chances that LSU has to prove themselves as a playoff contender. But we'll see what happens. I'll be out there tailgating. It's always a very, very fun atmosphere in Baton Rouge tailgating for LSU games, and I'm looking forward to that. If you happen to see me or pass by me, don't be afraid to say hi. I'm always looking to connect with people and just talk football. If you want to give your take for the game, if you have some bold predictions, be sure to reach out to me at amocklin@ktalnews.com. Like I said, I'm always willing to talk football, sports, entertainment, anything you might have. I'm always willing to connect with the community, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of you out there this weekend. But let's get into the first few picks for this weekend, where, we're kicking off things with a banger in the morning, where number 8 Ole Miss comes to number 13 Oklahoma, and this one is going to be a pretty tightly contested game, I think. Ole Miss has been one of the most electrifying offenses this year, but Oklahoma's defense has been pretty stout. But, the Rebels, they put up a lot of points against Georgia's elite defense last week, and they scored 35 points in the first 3 quarters. And if it wasn't for that fourth quarter where they put up a whole goose egg, they would still be undefeated. But, we'll see what happens. Some fun facts between the matchups between these two teams. This will be their third ever matchup on the football field, and the first of which was at the 1999 Independence Bowl here in Shreveport. And some of you might have been at that game. I'm sure it was an absolute thriller. I believe Ole Miss only won by like a couple of points, so I'm sure that was really, really fun. And then Ole Miss hosted Oklahoma last year at home, and they picked up the win again. So they are 2-0 in this relatively new, this infancy of a college football series, and especially with Oklahoma and Texas recently joining the SEC. These two teams will start to rack up more matchups against each other in years to come, being in the same conference now. But like I said, they are undefeated in this series. We'll see if that continues. But, like I said, Ole Miss's offense has been pure electricity all year. They've averaged over 37 points per game this season and are racking up almost 500 yards of offense per game, which is good for 8th in the nation. And that is largely due to their passing attack. Quarterback Trinidad Chambliss had filled in for the starter who was originally Austin Simmons, but he ended up getting injured. And Chambliss has filled in very nicely for the Rebels. And he actually became the first Ole Miss quarterback to start each of his first 5 starts with over 250 passing yards. And that is the first time that has happened since Eli Manning. So really, really great company to be in. If you're an Ole Miss fan, it has been a lot of fun to watch their offense this year. And one of his favorite targets has been tight end Daquan Wright, and he is 3rd in yards with 393 yards. And he is first in the SEC with 20.7 yards per catch. So he is a really, really big play guy, and he has been pretty reliable all season so far. And their rushing attack has been pretty good as well. Running back Kawan Lacey has racked up over 600 rushing yards with 10 touchdowns. And this is going to be a really big test for him, considering that Oklahoma's defense only allows 2.3 yards per carry to running backs. So that'll be a really, really good test to watch unfold. But like I was saying with that Oklahoma defense, they are 2nd in points per game allowed, and they are only averaging 9.4 points allowed per game, which is insane with the state of offenses today. It seems like everybody is putting up points now, but the fact that you allow opponents to single digits per game is just unfathomable almost. And that is largely due to their pass rush. They are averaging 4 sacks per game, which is first in the country. And that'll be another key test to watch out for. Whereas Ole Miss's offensive line, they have only allowed 1 sack per game, which is good for 15th in the nation. So that'll be another bend. We'll see who bends and who breaks in that matchup, but that's going to be a really, really exciting thing to watch. But like I was saying, Georgia's defense was also elite, and Ole Miss put up a ton of points against them. So I really think it'll be not an exact matchup with that, but I think that Ole Miss will still, they'll get at least like 28 points, I think, because like I said, their offense is really, really hard to contain, especially both through the air and the ground. I do think they'll win this game through the air, but, we'll see if they can eat away at Oklahoma's run defense, which has been really, really stout this year. But as far as Oklahoma's offense, their quarterback, John Mateer, he has been pretty decent so far this year. He looked really good at first in the season, but he ended up suffering a broken hand where he recovered, in quotes, because he returned after a broken hand after 17 days. So, in my opinion, that was pretty rushed, and it definitely showed in games like against Texas, for example, where he completed just barely over 50% of his passes and 3 interceptions in that game. Oklahoma got destroyed in that game, and it's, I think he could have benefited from a little bit more rest because that was what was his throwing hand, and, it definitely led to some costly mistakes for them. But their running has been pretty decent as well. Running back Torrey Blaylock has averaged 4.5 yards per carry on his way to almost 400 rushing yards. So, it's been pretty decent, pretty serviceable. It's not, elite by any means, but it's still able to get the job done and establish the run. We'll see if they could do so against Ole Miss. But their wide receiver, Isaiah Satenya III, has led the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns this year. So that has definitely been their favorite go-to guy this year. And, it's tough to pick. I know I liked Ole Miss to win in this game. Oklahoma is a 4.5-point favorite at home. But, I just think Ole Miss has looked better this year, especially against tougher opponents. So I like Ole Miss in this spot to get the job done. And moving on throughout the SEC, we have Vanderbilt, who is number 10 never thought you would hear anybody say that or just hear it's insane the run that this program has been on this year. They are hosting number 15 Missouri, and that will be a very, very cool matchup because, like I said, Vanderbilt is in the top 10 for the first time since 1947, which is insane to even fathom because this is a team that, they were pretty much an afterthought in the SEC for years and years and years. And to see them, prove themselves as a top 10 team on the national stage like this is honestly pretty shocking thing to see unfold. But, they have been carried by their offense, which has been absolutely elite. They're averaging over 41 points per game this season, and that is good for 8th in the country. And they ended up putting the most points against LSU's defense that they've allowed last week in that win. They won 31-24, but, I didn't think it was as close as the score might have indicated. But like I said, they were able to put up points against a supposedly elite LSU defense, which the jury's still out on that one, but we'll see what happens. I mean, they really, really earned that win on offense, and that is largely thanks to quarterback Diego Pavia, who has completed 70% of his passes and he averages, almost 290 total yards per game because he does like to run. He gets it done through the air and the ground. And he has also passed for 15 touchdowns, which is good for 3rd in the SEC among quarterbacks. And as looking to the other side of things with the Missouri Tigers, they have, in the historic matchup against Vanderbilt, they have won 9 of their last 10 against Vanderbilt, including 5 straight. And they have looked a little bit shaky this year because they ended up pulling out a win in double overtime against Auburn, but they were outgained in that game and only averaged 2.1 yards per carry rushing. So, really, really shaky win. They're fortunate to have come out with that one with the victory. But, at home, I like Vanderbilt in this spot to stay undefeated. I mean, they have been rolling all season, and I think they have the better quarterback, the better offense. And like I said, home field advantage in college football. If you're an LSU fan, you know just how insane of an advantage playing in Tiger Stadium is. So give me Vanderbilt in this spot to keep things rolling. But looking over to the Big 12 with number 11 BYU taking on Iowa State. Now, Iowa State is unranked in this game, but like I said, with the home field advantage, they are slight favorites. And I tend to agree a little bit because BYU, even though they are undefeated, they are number 11 in the country. Their resume has looked a little bit shaky for my liking this year. And their rushing attack has been their bread and butter. They are 10th in the nation with 233 rushing yards per game. And their defense is also top 25 in several metrics, including yards per game allowed, points per game allowed, and scoring. And this has been, if you're an old school football fan, this is old school hard-nosed football, running the football, and elite defense, and that is what has vaulted them to this top 11 spot, and is why they're undefeated still. But these wins that they're pulling out, it's been nothing short of miraculous, because at one point in the season they were down double digits to Arizona, and they ended up having to come back from that one and win that game. So they could easily not be undefeated. I think if they would have lost that game or even another one, I don't think they would be ranked at all. That's just my opinion. But, the fact that they're undefeated still, you have to put them there. But, their running game, like I said, has been pretty elite this year, and that is thanks to LJ Martin, their running back, who has averaged an incredible 6.1 yards per carry on his way to 774 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. And looking to Iowa State, they're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to offense and defense, but I will say that their defense, in terms of points per game allowed, they're only allowing 19 points per game, which is good for 27th in the nation among all teams, which is, pretty elite if you're in the top 30. So we'll see if they can hold BYU's offense. I mean, you really just have to stop the run because, like I said, they are top 10 in the nation when it comes to rushing. So if you force them to pass and they have to try to will out a come-from-behind win like they did against Arizona, I think it'll spell trouble for BYU. Plus, Iowa State, like we were saying earlier, with home field advantage, they're at home, and then they're also coming off a bye as well. So I like Iowa State in this spot, well-rested, at home. Give me the Cyclones in this one. But looking ahead to the game that everybody has been waiting for, and some LSU fans are even dreading, because no one ever wants to see, if you're an LSU fan, you really never want to see Texas A&M win. I mean, they have a huge rivalry with A&M as of late, and A&M fans still like to hold that 74-72 quadruple billion overtime win over LSU fans, but that is in the past. And the last time Texas A&M has won at LSU was back in 1994. So they have a lot of backing up to do when it comes to the smack talk and trash talk, but we'll see who comes out on top. I really, as an LSU fan, I don't feel the best about the Tigers' chances this week, especially with what we've seen from the offense and the defense, which was surprisingly lackluster against Vanderbilt. But going back to the Aggies, they are 7-0. This is their best start to a season since that year, 1994, which is the last time they won in Death Valley. So we'll see if they can right the ship on that one and break that streak. They are one of only 5 undefeated college football teams remaining, and their most impressive win this year, honestly, has been against then number 10 Notre Dame on the road, where they pulled out that one 41-40 in an insane finish. I don't know if any of you saw the end of that game, but it was absolutely incredible. Instant classic for sure. But Notre Dame, after struggling a little bit to start the season, I believe they started 0-2, and they were still ranked, and people were pretty mad about that. Having them be ranked still, but after reeling off 5 straight wins, they are back to number 12 in the rankings. So, we'll see if that is legit or not. But, since they have reeled back into the rankings, that has looked more and more impressive of a win for Texas A&M. But against Arkansas last week, it was pretty shaky as far as the defense is concerned for Texas A&M, because they allowed season highs in rushing yards and total yards against Arkansas. They squeaked by that game by 3, I believe, on the road against Arkansas. So we'll see if that is any sign of what's to come, although they really don't have a lot to worry about when it comes to their defense against elite offenses, because LSU is one of the farthest teams away from an elite offense, because they have failed to score more than 24 points in any game this year. And the game against Florida, which was one of the most stressful games of all time that I've seen as an LSU fan, for no reason, because Florida ended up throwing like 5 interceptions in that game, and the offense still put up 13 points. They did win 20-10, but 7 of those points were from a pick 6. So it's pretty embarrassing to only score that many points at home against a very inferior team, especially when they're giving you the ball on a silver platter 5 times in a game. That's just inexcusable for an offense. But Texas A&M is not Florida. We're gonna see what they're made of and what we can do about stopping them or being able to stay in the game. I mean, the offense, plain and simple, just has to put up points at the end of the day. That's really what it's going to take to beat Texas A&M, especially with the defense banged up. I mean, Whit Weeks, linebacker, he's dealing with an ankle injury, and he missed last week against Vanderbilt. And as of the time of this live stream, he is out again this week against Texas A&M. So really huge blow to the defense. We'll see what's going to happen, but you never know. The defense was supposedly elite coming into the season and within the first 2 games, but then the only 2 real offenses that they played, Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, they lost both of those games. So we'll see what they're really made of against Texas A&M, but I don't expect them to come out of here with a win or really stop anybody. But we'll see what happens. The Death Valley having home field advantage is crucial. It's definitely the toughest place to play in the country, but I don't even think that's enough for the Tigers to come out with a victory here. I hate picking against LSU. I'm really not a huge fan of Texas A&M, as are other people in the SEC. I'm sure a lot of you have the same disdain for them if you're a huge SEC fan. No offense to A&M fans. It's just a lot of trash talking that have been, dealt LSU's way in the past. But I like A&M on the road here, especially considering that on the road against Notre Dame, they did not falter in that game, and I don't think that Death Valley is going to stop them either, unfortunately. So I like the Texas A&M Aggies in this game to come out on top. But that's all I have today for Football Friday. If you have your takes for the game or you want to share your predictions, be sure to reach out to me at amocklin@ktalnews.com. You can follow us on our social medias everywhere at KTAL News, and you can find our previous episodes of KTAL News now on our YouTube page at KTAL News. But we stream every day, Monday through Friday, on KTALnews.com. So be sure not to miss a single episode. Be sure to download our app so you don't miss a beat. You can get notifications when we go live and other weather events or breaking news topics. But like I said, I'm Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your day and weekend. Thank you for joining us.